All right. Call to order for the written Borough Council meeting Wednesday, August 9th, 2023. I do have to announce that we had an executive session before this meeting, which we discussed legal and personnel issues. That said, the sequence now is a little different. We're going to have the roll call next. So John, would you?
I would be glad to. President LaMontagne?
Here.
Vice President Price?
Here.
Member Asher?
Here.
Member Fresco?
Here.
Member Kellering? Member Lowe?
Here.
Member Siegfried?
Here.
And Mayor Donovan?
Here.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, so we could have the pledge of allegiance. Karen, will you lead us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So the first item is the consent agenda items, namely the Borough Council, approving the Borough Council minutes of July 12th, 2023. The Treasurer's report dated August 2023. Unpaid bills, and the unpaid bills for August 2023 was $160,345.97. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
So moved.
Is there a second?
We have two people.
Oh, I heard you.
Kevin Moore, second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. This is the time in the agenda for resident remarks if they are not on the agenda. I do need to remind you that this meeting is being videotaped, so are there any resident remarks? And hearing none, the next item on the business is a 2022 municipal audit by Steyer and Associates. And I'm very
We are going to move that to next month.
okay. Good. So, Chief Knott, you want to be the next?
Okay, thank you. Good to see everyone again. Have a couple of things to update the council on. It's kind of broken into three areas. The first, what I'd like to do is announce that through the generosity of Smith Marine right up the road, we're going to take delivery of this exact vehicle. It's a $32,000 utility trail vehicle. And we are going to put it in service so we can get to all the trails that crisscross amongst all three of our municipalities. Of course, we have to dip into Doylestown Township a little bit, to get down this neck of the woods. Right now, we're just not able to patrol the trails as popular as they are with the staffing that we have, and we can't get there with a traditional police car. Just the trails aren't wide enough. So we just found out this week that this is going to be a new vehicle for us, and we'll also be able to use it for special events as they occur throughout the three boroughs. So we're really excited about that. It really gives us an upper edge to get to someone who's hurt quickly and at a render rate. So I just wanted to pass that on to you right here from Smith Marine. You need to just get some lights and some decals.
It's gonna get.
Yeah, it's got to get jazzed up a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that going to be able to, if you had to go pick up somebody that you couldn't get an ambulance to, then you have to take that out to the ambulance. Are you able to put a stretcher or something?
Yes,
on
well,
the back?
not a traditional stretcher, it's a
Right.
backboard.
Right.
So, yeah, we have accommodations being fabricated for us to be able to do that.
Okay.
You can see it also has a winch on the front. Let's say for some reason a car goes into a creek or a pond, we can at least stabilize that car with the winch until some more heavy duty equipment arrives. It's air conditioned and heated, has 2 seats in it. It's really going to be a great asset to our fleet.
Do you move that by trailer or do you drive that on the road?
They drive that on the road.
They'll go up to 60 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, they,
When we attend the regional bike and hike meetings, the biggest complaint is they don't see the police. And with the advent of electric bikes that can do 35, 40 miles an hour,
Right.
the runners complain that, the bikes just whiz by them and wreak all kinds of havoc. So we'll see. It's going to be a little trial and error. We never had this kind of equipment before, but glad to have it,
That's great.
especially at that cost
I love it.
with no taxpayer dollars involved.
excellent.
Okay. So I just wanted to take council through some points on our ongoing staffing issues that you've talked about. We've been at this for over 4 years. But before I did that, I just wanted to, really reintroduce myself. We have some new members here tonight. And just to give you a flavor of who I am, I started my law enforcement career in 1984 with Abington Township Police Department, and I spent 30 years there. Abington Police, if you don't know, is a large suburban police department of 92 officers, 56,000 people jammed in 15 square miles. It has some pretty big responsibilities. It has 2 major hospitals, Holy Redeemer and Abington being a trauma center. We have a Penn State Abington campus there. We have the Willow Grove Park Mall and things of that nature. And the traffic through there is pretty horrendous if you travel down there on York Road. Connects Philadelphia with the Willow Grove interchange. So it's a busy, busy place. In 2014, I came up and I was appointed chief of police at Chalfont. And during those 2 years, 2014 to 16, I worked along with their borough council to get them on board that they needed to regionalize for all the benefits that regionalization provides. 2016 then, I came aboard the regional police as a captain. In 2018, when Chief Donnelly retired, I tested through a process with PA Chiefs of Police and came out #1 and was promoted to Chief of Police, again, 2018. John, next slide. My educational background is I hold 2 master's degrees. The first one is in public safety management from St. Joe's. The second one is a master's degree in criminal justice from Southwestern University. Next slide. So I'm not here to do death by PowerPoint or read every word on every slide, but I do think it's important that you realize what your chief of police has accomplished in his career. And some of the selected achievements are, I was selected to go to the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia. That's a 13-week program. Less than 1% of all police commanders in the country are eligible to go to that. After that, I was awarded a 6-month fellowship at the Leadership Development Institute as a faculty member at the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia. And that was to teach leadership to police commanders and police officers that were coming in under the National Academy program. That carries a secret security clearance from the U.S. government. After that, I was awarded a 12-month fellowship to the National Counterterrorism Center in McLean, Virginia. That carries a top secret SCI security clearance. It's the highest the government will give out. And to attain that, I needed to pass the counterterrorism polygraph. While I was there, I attended executive education through the Brookings Institute. The Brookings Institute is a major think tank worldwide. And also, I was certified as a counterterrorism analyst with the Defense Intelligence Agency. Another selected achievement is I was one of 50 to attend the Harvard Kennedy School of Government National Preparedness Leadership Initiative up in Harvard. It's a 7-month program which required me to be 2 weeks at Harvard, and then we had to present our project there for 7 months to Harvard faculty. And then finally, I'm also on the executive board of the Philadelphia Area Joint Terrorism Task Force. That also requires a secret security clearance. I'm only one of 2 chiefs in Old Bucks County that have the credentials to be able to sit on that. And really what that means is that we meet quarterly down at FBI Field Office, Philadelphia. We go over all the events that we deem necessary that would affect us locally here. The other chief is Chief McVeigh from Ben Salem Township is also on there. All right, so that's just a little bit about myself. Any questions? All right, so this is a 3-slide kind of presentation. I'll just take it through you real quick. These are all the things that you don't see happen behind the scenes. You know, you see a police car drive by, you see us do a car stop, write a ticket, respond, arrest people, which we'll get into later. But these are some of the things that make us stand out as a leader within Central Bucks and Central Bucks policing. So the timeline is from 2018 when I became chief to 2023 current. But we're going to kind of start where it says civil unrest. And I'm going to take you back to the summer of 2020 with the murder of George Floyd by the Minneapolis Police Department. And as a result of that, all these new programs came out from the federal government, mandating police, do this, do that. You need more social services. You need to be trained in domestic violence. Get a canine unit going. Mental health. Your policies have to meet federal guidelines. So that's all well and good. Next slide. But this is what we've done as a police department prior to summer of 2020. So if you, maybe hard to see, if you try to line up the dots, they kind of coordinate what the federal government has mandated in the summer 2020, 21, 22, and we were well ahead of the curve. Excuse me, let me stay for a minute. De-escalation. That was a word I was never heard of before the riots of the summer of 2020. But we partnered with the International Chiefs of Police. We brought training to all Bucks County Police Departments, and we were a recognized leader through our insurance carrier, Delaware Valley Insurance Trust. Our policies were already updated at that point for use of force, less lethal, and bias-based policing. Our insurance carrier labeled us as a model police department since we had that already done. Domestic violence. We were one of 6 police departments nationwide to partner in a pilot program for enhancing trust through proactive approach to sexual assault, domestic violence, and strangulation. You can match that up all the way over here with domestic violence. All right, we were doing it in 2018. The federal government said, hey, you should be taking a look at this in 2020. So again, way ahead of the curve. And on and on. Autism awareness, canine unit, officer wellness, accreditation, and substance abuse and mental health. You can see here, this pink, the national call for CIT training. That's critical incident training. That's dealing with mental health subjects. Well, we took a look at that and we're like, before that even came out, we were already 100% CIT trained throughout the whole department. All 26 police officers, and that's a 40-hour class. It's a lot to put somebody through there for staffing purposes, for them to get that kind of training. So that's fine. Government said let's do this, and a lot of departments are still struggling with this in 2023. But Central Bucks, we were able to identify a lot of these problems and get working on them 2-3 years ahead of time. Next slide. Yep. So what I don't like to do is rest on our laurels. It would have been easy to say, hey, federal mandates and everything else, we're up to snuff. We're done with all this stuff. But no, we keep pushing the envelope all the time. You'll see de-escalation appears again. We did it in 2018. Federal government said, hey, you better take a look at this in 2021. We escalated our de-escalation training by bringing in virtual reality equipment. We now bring the officers into a training room about this size We put virtual reality goggles on them and we drop them into a virtual reality world. And we have one of, oh my gosh, 10,000 scenarios we can run them through. So we're not resting on our laurels. Started the accreditation process with policy. We had to wait for the new building to be completed, which it was, thanks to all of you. And then we achieved accreditation early in 2022. So that's just a snippet of what we're doing behind the scenes. We're constantly looking to identify problem areas or things where we can be better and be a leader. So many police departments come to us to try to take a look at our model policies because they just don't know where to start. So you should be very proud of your police department because of all those things we did and continue to do. Okay, it's just a little up to date for where we've been. The second part of the slideshow, there aren't that many slides. We've been talking about staff study for about 4 years. It started on the bottom, 2019. There was an initial assessment about our part-time program versus full-time program. Then we did another staff study internally, 2020, and crunched the numbers. 2021 was an updated staff study once again, showing how the part-timer system has failed us because of the constant turnover. And then finally, last year, I think it was June, 2022, Safe City Solutions, who we brought in as an independent consultant, published their staff study, which has been circulated amongst all of you. So just a couple highlights there. Go ahead.
We haven't seen it.
It's been out for a year.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
What's that?
That was part of something. I know that I've seen it.
Yeah. I can send that to you electronically if you want to push it out.
Would you please?
So these are just some of the highlights of the staff study. It's recommended that Central Bucks Regional Police employ 31 full-time officers. Right now, we're at 26. It's recommended that Central Bucks Regional Police transition to the employment of full-time police officers only. We only have one part-timer left, and we're hoping that with your consideration as you go through the budget process, we can get those 2 officers that has been presented, and we can get away from the part-time program altogether. And then it's recommended to the Police Commission, or that the Police Commission and the Chief of Police begin formulating a plan both fiscally, administratively to take actionable steps with identifiable benchmarks to reach the recommended police officer staffing as soon as possible. And I think that's the phase we're in now, that we're all working together. The managers meet independently, the mayors meet independently, and the Police Commission then meets and then passes everything forward to the respective councils. Okay. So again, some of the things here that came out as a result of the staff study, that Central Bucks is above the state and county average in calls for service. That's where we're really hurting right now. With our limited staffing, we are already 450 calls for service above where we were at this time last year. Usually we only have 3 officers working during the day. So that covers from Chalfont, the border of New Britain Township, all the way out to the border of Buckingham Township and everything that lies in between. So when you compare us to US and state region statistics, Central Bucks is below the average for officers per 1,000 population. We are significantly above the state and county figures on average range of arrests per officer. So the few officers we have, we're busy, we're out there, we're making those arrests where necessary. And then we also have a significant decrease in crime clearance because we just can't keep up with the workload to investigate a lot of these crimes thoroughly. And then finally, the Part 2 crime and arrest rate is well above the county and state average. Once again, we're out there doing data-driven policing. where we identify where the problems are and we put those police officers in those areas. Okay? So these couple bullets here are in real time. So I really need you to absorb this for me. Since 2021, officers have worked 232 18-hour shifts. That's a lot. 12-hour shifts is bad enough, but that's just the way the business is. We're so short, we constantly have to push our officers for an extra 6 hours, and then 6 hours on the other end. We've done this now 232 times since 2021. The cost of doing that is $59,593. That's just for the extra 6 hours that the officers have to work to make the extra 6 hours, yes, to make it up for the 18-hour, 6 plus 12. What that doesn't show you is the union contract mandates that if an officer does not get 8 hours of sleep or time off between shifts, his next shift, which is 12 hours, that entire shift is at time and a half. So we're paying it on the 18-hour end, and then the very next shift, we're paying it time and a half times 12 hours. And I'll show you later, it is at a point now we're starting to lose officers over it. In 2022, there were 199 day work shifts. Day work is 6A to 6P out of 365 that were understaffed, leaving only 3 officers. 199 shifts out of 365. We only had 3 officers working. In 23, we're pacing at the same rate. May, year to date, 67 day work shifts out of 145 were staffed with only 3 officers. When you take into account that most of our calls are 2 or 3 officers, we get wiped out really fast. An accident, 2 officers. A bad domestic, 2 or 3 officers. Mental health calls, which we'll get into, 2, 3, 4 officers, and on and on. Also, it presents officer wellness concerns, which I'll give you an example of a little further on. So you can hit this 3 times. So it's bad enough where we are right now, but this is what we're looking coming down the pipe. And on my quick math here, we're looking at 569 total units, just units, not people, units. Also, Doylestown Borough decided to drop a Target department store in on us. Like, you gotta be kidding me, right? So that's coming March of 2024. And you can see with, I saw the renderings, some of the beautiful projects that you have lined up here in the borough. I mean, they're gorgeous, and I hope they go through. But again, we have to provide public safety for all that. So that's what we're looking at right now. Mental health. Mental health just never ends. I don't know why, but we are taxed with it. Could you get the next slide, John? 64% increase in climbing from 2018. Here's the problem. With mental health, it usually takes 2 to 3 officers. We need to take the person to Doylestown Hospital in a crisis unit. We have to stay with that person. We have to file the paperwork. It's called a 302 involuntary warrant. It takes time. It has to be reviewed by a mental health professional. And usually some of these incidents take 2, 3 officers, 2, 3 hours to complete. So we're struggling with trying to keep up the pace with mental health. And there's really nothing we can do proactively. If somebody's running a stop sign, we'll put a police car there. But this takes a life of its own. Same thing with Part 1 crimes. Increase in climbing. So if you're not familiar, Part 1 crimes are your real serious crimes. They include homicide, rape. Thankfully, none of that happens around here. But we get into the ag assault, robbery, burglary, larceny, theft of motor vehicle, and arson. They all make up Part 1 crimes. And as you can see there on the bottom, Our motor vehicle thefts have increased 140% from 2018, and assaults have increased 58%. And we're doing this with basically 3 or 4 guys at a time. Guys being gender neutral, officers at a time. Okay? So just let me take you through the last couple of weeks here at Central Bucks. It's important to realize that I've heard conversation amongst most of you that, hey, we really got to watch, the city elements starting to creep up here in beautiful historic Bucks County. And, the city element. Well, I'm here to tell you that the city element is here, okay? And we're dealing with it every day. This gentleman here has been on the run for 4 months from the United States Marshal's Fugitive Task Force for a litany of crimes. We see him doing a hand-to-hand drug buy in Doylestown. We try to put hands on him, and he runs. And he runs, and he runs. Well, 9 hours later, and 4 canine units, and 6 assisting departments, we finally get this guy and lock him up. He's from Philadelphia. Okay, John. Mr. Schuster. He is right here from Borough. He decides it's a pretty cool idea to take a gun and put it at the forehead of his girlfriend and threaten to kill her. She's able to escape, call the police, but he's still in the trailer. So we have to get there, and now we have to slow it down, take our time, and tactically try to get him to come out on his own. That's one of those calls that took 4 officers about 3 hours to complete. So once he was in custody, we have to file charges, we have to get him before a judge, and it takes time and time and time, and the officers are just tied up one. You'll see it on your monthly sheet, it's just 1 incident, but it appears where 4 or 5 officers need to work this case. Okay? I'm sorry, he's from New Britain. These 2 guys are from Philadelphia. Possession of a firearm. Officer makes a car stop. He sees a gun between the front seat of the car. Checks it out further. This is what's called a ghost gun. First time we came up with that. A ghost gun is not a gun made by a regular gun manufacturer. It's made together by all kinds of pieces, borrowed, made, handmade, even sometimes digitally or laser printed. Has no serial number on it, and there's only one thing they're used for, and none of it is good. So we grabbed those 2 guys, both from Philadelphia. This man opened lewdness. I'm sorry. He's from Philadelphia with no fixed abode. He was just on a bench one day 2 weeks ago, masturbating in public. So here we are. I think there's one or 2 more. The bottom gentleman decided not to steal 1 car, but 2 cars at the same time. We responded when we hailed him to get on the ground. He approached the officer in an aggressive manner, and a small scuffle ensued to the point where we had to taser him to take him into custody. So again, from Philadelphia. And the last one, pardon me?
Is that the guy that was at the Liberty gas station?
Yes, started at McCafferty's and then went to Liberty, yes. And then the last one here is Mr. Edwards decides to get on this happens a lot to us, it's just geographics really. He gets on the SEPTA train, shoots dope, goes unconscious, and at the very end of the line, guess where it ends? Right here in Doylestown, right? Conductor shakes him, time to get off the train, buddy, and he wanders around, and he winds up finding a open-doored station tap house, and we lock him up for burglary and criminal trespass, again, from the city. So this is not something that's been stretched out over a month or 2 years or something. This all happened within about a 3-week time frame, and I'm not going to bore you here. We could go on and on and on. So we are busier all the time. Okay, and lastly, I want to try to just give you a sense This is our org chart, organizational chart. This is in a perfect world when no one is sick, when no one's on maternity leave, when we have a full complement of officers. That is 26. You know, you may have to hit this once or twice. Hit it the first time. Okay. The first officer that disappears is Officer Puller, leaving a vacancy. Officer Puller, unfortunately, had some issues where he had to resign very quickly. He was out for knee replacement surgery for over a year on light duty. He came back and worked 2 shifts and had such anxiety over these 18-hour shifts that he decided enough was enough. So there's your first victim of the constant 18-hour shifts. You hit that, John? So there we go. We had a vacancy. The last box dropped off. That is Officer Politsky. She's been taken off the street and reassigned light duty indoors. She's on maternity leave, but it still leaves a vacancy on the street. The staff, have the staffing to answer the calls. Okay. All right. So what we do is we take traffic supervisor Corporal Hilton. Ed Hilton works a unit by himself. He works Monday through Friday, 6 to 2. He handles all our traffic complaints, does the speed board, does speed enforcement, approves all the accident reports, gets all our electronic gear certified every 60 days. It's a big, big job for one person. But at this point, it's a luxury. So I had to move Corporal Hilton from traffic unit. You hit that, or maybe twice. Okay. And I moved him into the regular squad. So now we don't have any kind of traffic safety going on there other than what the police officers are able to squeeze in. Okay, next slide. And then what happened to backfill Officer Politsky being on maternity leave, I had to take a detective, and we only had 2 to start with all this volume of work and investigations. We have only 2, and I had to pull her just to put her on squad 1, just so those officers weren't constantly short to try to keep these 18-hour shifts done. And then Corporal Fragoli, just saw him bounce away, squad 4. He gave notice that December 31st of this year, he is resigning from the police department. Now, I will say it's not totally because of the 18-hour shifts, but he did mention that it's just too much. So we're going to lose a 7-year veteran, a police supervisor, and we're going to have to do a promotional test later this year and get that backfilled. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. That's why we're asking for this additional manpower. If you get a chance to read the staffing study recommends that we're 5 officers short. I had asked for 4, and now we're working through possibly 2. If we can at least get that ball rolling. So I'm here to answer any questions. I hope that's just a little bit of an update on where we are with all of this. Okay.
What kind of timetable are we talking about to, if we do find the money for these 2 officers, whatever?
So the timetable would be like this, Mr. Price. We have to follow civil service regulations. That means we have to give a physical agility test, a written test, and an oral interview, and then really everything else starts after that. We're trying to get those 3 items lined up. So if we get the okay from the 3 individual municipalities, everything is in place. We're looking in the September, October timeframe to try to get everything done in time so these new officers could hit the street running come January 2nd, again, in a perfect world. The vetting process, the background process takes months. We really leave no stone unturned in regards to that.
Chief,
Yes, sir.
is there any way that you could hire experienced
officers, so you wouldn't have to have them all go through.
Now, the civil service regulations are very strict, and I can't do that. Now, having said that, when Officer Fuller gave his resignation unexpectedly, the civil service regulations has a very small caveat in there, and it's called an emergency hire. We're allowed to do one emergency hire because truly it's an emergency. We didn't know it was coming, and we have no current list that's certified to be able to pluck the next candidate from. So that's the one and only time we can do that, and we have done that. We have a conditional offer of employment to a young man. He is a Philadelphia police sergeant with 12 years of experience. He currently lives in the Highland section of Northampton Township, graduate of Archbishop Wood. So he is pretty much a Central Bucks kind of guy. There we could just pull up. We don't have the advantage of like a second-class township like Doylestown or probably even New Britain Township, I would imagine, where they don't have these civil service regulations that we have to follow. They're very, very strict.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
When you showed your organizational chart, I'm trying to figure out where 4 people would go. I can see that you're definitely 2 men down or 2 officers down. Where would the other 2 officers be? Because they're not on the chart.
Right. So because because I'm not getting 4. In a perfect world, I would get 4, and I could just drop 1 on each squad and makes everything even. Okay. So we're not there yet. So if I can get to 2, our thinking is to assign them to what's called a power shift. We would take our 2 K-9 officers and we would assign them to hours 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. And what that does is it overlaps 2 different squads, the day work squad and the night work squad. And then again, the other K-9 officer. And what that does is it bolsters the squads from 2 o'clock in the afternoon when our calls for service tend to rise toward the end of the day. And the K-9s are here to help with the bar crowd and the DUIs that we encounter at that time. That we're going to try it that way first. But yeah, you're right. So they're going to work their own schedule.
And I have one more question. The officer who's out on maternity, well, she's not out, she's just doing light duty now,
Yes.
but then she will be out, obviously, after.
Yes.
When she comes back, I'm not sure what length of time officers are allowed for maternity leave.
It's really on them and their doctors.
Right.
We don't mandate.
Oh, okay.
We don't mandate any of
So
that
you don't know how long she's going
I
to
really
be out?
don't. I mean, Officer Newbold, who's our other female officer, she's very good in communicating that, hey, this is a target date,
Mhm.
and we can get ready for that.
Yes.
So, so we need to also then, in the first quarter of 2024, I have to select somebody from the patrol division and put them in detectives to backfill that opening. But again, we need the coverage on the street first.
But when she comes back, suppose she takes most of 2024 off. Will that then help with the staffing issue? Because technically then you would have another officer coming on. Is that gonna?
No, our numbers won't change. She'll still be doing her light duty assignments that we give her. We try to give her some pretty easy kind of detective things that can be done through phone, and then write up a report, those type of things. Yeah, she'll still be in the rotation. Yeah.
You said that ideally you would want 4, you're not getting that. And then you mentioned 2 or 3. Why are you saying 2 versus 3 right now at this point?
Because in the conversation between the police commission and the mayors and the managers, and collectively, everyone feels comfortable with let's crawl before we walk type of thing. Let's start with the 2. But I am here to tell you that all three boroughs have to do a tax increase. We know that. I know that. And I know how precious every dollar is to all the boroughs. And if you tell me it's 2, I'll make 2 work. 4 would be great. 10 would be better, right? But I can only go at the pace of the individual municipalities. So let's get with 2. 2's better than nothing. And, try to bolster up our response time and be able to handle the load that we know is coming, especially with this new building. They have to prove for these people sitting here, listening to me go on and on. Yep, here.
I'm glad to see that you're increasing the officers in the 2 to 12 or whatever, 2 in the morning. Because it always struck me as madness to have the same staffing levels at 3 o'clock in the morning as is at 10 o'clock at night at bars changing. And I wondered whether you can do more of that, because I suspect essentially adjust the staffing to suit the anticipated load. Because, when you look at it, not much goes up. New Britain Borough, not much goes.
You'd be surprised, Peter.
Around
You'd be
one
surprised what goes on.
Yeah, I know.
You really would. And unfortunately, I don't have the ability to just arbitrarily change work hours. That is set in the union contract, and they're not going to budge on that.
So how are you able to do it in this case where you mentioned?
Because it is a brand new shift that's coming on board, and I basically told the union, you need to meet me halfway. If you want extra staffing and you need me to go before councils like yourself and do these presentations and bring everyone together, then I need the concessions that you will work these shifts. And so far, so good. We just need a small memorandum of understanding to attach to the current contract, and we'll be good to go. The 2 K-9 officers are actually volunteering for these shifts. So it's not like I have to force somebody into a weird shift.
So you would anticipate this being set in stone down the road?
Yes, and I'm going to be very candid with you that if there's any inkling or pushback from the police union, I'm just going to say, well, then we can't do this. And all 3 municipalities would be happy because they're saving money. But I think we demonstrated the need. We're only getting busier, and it's just the way it is right now. So, all right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Mr. Town Chief.
Right. The next item is the MS4 pollution reduction plan, request for public comment. You want to talk about
Yeah, I'm gonna turn it over to our borough engineer, Karen McNeil.
So I was last here before you with this map in November of 2022, but since that's been almost a year and we have a couple new council members, I was gonna go over that presentation again briefly, just to give you all an overview of why I'm here tonight. This is part of the borough's municipal separate storm sewer system permit from the DEP. And what that permit does is it authorizes the borough to discharge into waters of the Commonwealth. You have the Cooks Run, you have Pine Run, and ultimately everything drains into the Neshaminy Creek. The high point of the borough roughly runs along Butler here, so the north goes to Pine Run, south goes to Cooks Run, and again, everything eventually goes into Neshaminy Creek. What I'm here tonight presenting is the plan that we prepared to meet the permits, pollutant reduction load requirements, and also the borough's total maximum daily load limit for sediment, which is just for the Pine Run. So the pollutant reduction plan is for the whole borough, but the load requirement for sediment is just here for the Pine Run area. We've worked through this plan with the DEP. They have no more technical comments, so they are ready to approve the plan once the public comment period, we've received public comment during the 30-day period, and we've taken a look at those and addressed them in the plan. The plan includes mapping, calculations, and the written plan to show how the borough is going to reduce the sediment load from stormwater discharges by 10% over the 5 years. It also looks at in 25 years, you have to reduce sediment load in Pine Run by 52%, which roughly works out to 10% over each 5 years. So the way that we can reduce those loads is by building what are called stormwater best management practices. Some of these are the stream restoration, which can be anywhere along the stream that meets the criteria of the DEP, but the other BMPs have to be located in planning areas. And planning areas are the land areas where the stormwater runoff enters your storm sewer system. So that's these gray areas in the Cook's Run, and then this green area for the Pine Run. So those are your planning areas. Just as an idea, the DEP considers your storm sewer system to include roads, inlets, piping, swales, inlets, channels, and any similar features. So I know you guys don't have a lot of storm sewer system, but the roads themselves will carry stormwater, so they're part of your storm sewer system. We have identified several potential stormwater features that we could construct to combine to meet load reduction requirements. That's a bioswale along Aarons Avenue, a bioswale along North Camden Avenue, a rain garden along South Latest Mill, bioswale along South Sand Road, base retrofit in front of Flora's Funeral Home, rain garden in the center of Berry Circle, and then we had a stream restoration identified along Pine Run Creek by the Covered Bridge and Orchard Parks. The BMPs that we've included in here, if you would do all of them, which I'm not suggesting you do, but if you would do all of them, that would be around 51,500 pounds per year. But the reduction that's required in the 5-year permit term is only 22,200. So it's more than double what you would need, but it's just because we wanted to give you guys a full menu of everything that we could think of, and you can pick and choose which ones to construct within that 5-year period instead of having to revise the plan and go back to the DEP. Now you can pick from those options to meet that criteria and get that 22,000 reduction in the 5 years.
Karen, can I ask a question? I'm
Yeah.
looking at the list of 7
Yeah,
potential, you said, BMPs. So we're not picking and choosing tonight.
no,
And over the next 5 years, you will come back to us with suggestions on what's most practical to do.
right. So what the DEP has been doing is once they approve the PRP plan, they've been giving municipalities 5 years from that date. So that would be my expectation is, once you're through this comment period and we can formally submit it to the DEP, that they approve it pretty quickly because they've already reviewed it. And then you have 5 years from that date to construct the ones that you would select. So that would be something that we could review, and I would make suggestions of where to go first. I would suggest the stream restoration first, because that's usually a little bit cheaper in terms of design, construction, and maintenance, and it's, I think, the one that has the most load reduction. It needs almost half the load reduction that's required in 5 years. So, I mean, just off the top of my head, that would be my first recommendation. But from there, yes, we could come back and make recommendations as to where we are in the load reduction and how to meet it in that 5-year term. Because we would need to, these are all concept level, like this is the level of information we have on these. So we'd have to testing, survey, design, and all that before we could get to that construction stage, and all that would require coordination with council and approval by council.
Stream approval and really refer to there. That's good. Is that plantings around the creek beds and edges of the, of the creek and getting in and even potentially removing blockages in the creek? Or is that something that, I'm kind of getting to a point of, is there something that can be done by the public? I realize we're talking probably a small scale, but is there
Yeah.
something that people can do in general that can help?
Because this all has to be approved and accepted by the DEP, I wouldn't want anybody to go out and do something in their own yard and say, hey, we've done this, can you get credit for it? Because again, we have to be in these planning areas, it have to be in this plan, we have to get DEP's approval. So, perhaps in a limited fashion, but we have to have it designed and then
It'd
kind
have
of
to be
get
pretty
into
well
that,
coordinated
yeah,
and, okay.
yeah. So potentially, but yeah.
You had some stuff in your report about, the need to meet the public participation requirements. Are we at that point yet?
Yeah,
or-
so this is part of it. So the public participation requirements from the DEP is to have the plan available for public review. It's on the Borough Stormwater page, and it's also available at 45 Keeley Avenue during the weekdays from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So that is part of it. The next part is that the borough accept written comments on the plan for a minimum of 30 days. It was advertised to be from July 31st to September 1st, because that was a Monday through Friday, so I think it's 33 days, but that would meet that requirement. So part of it is giving this presentation, seeing anyone had comments tonight, but also somebody does have a written comment, they can either submit them in person when they're reviewing the plan or email them to andrea@newbritonborough, NEWBRITAINBRORO.com. And then you could include the commenter's name and address would be part of the requirement. So that information, and then again, accepting public comments at the meeting tonight. And then we would have to consider and make record of each comment, and then also identify any changes that we made in the plan in response to this comment. So this was advertised on June 30th publicly in the newspaper as part of that requirement, and the date this time frame is June 31st to September 1st, and this meeting night were included in that as well. So yes, we're part of that public participation time period now.
And there's something else in your report about something as simple as street sweeping can help reduce runoff. And again, is that something that has to be part of the plan? Does it get measured in some way if we were to do it? I mean,
Yeah.
John's had some conversations about, having Shelford do some, borough maintenance related things, and I'm just wondering if that were involved, is that
Yeah, so the
is
street
that a good thing
sweeping,
to really reduce levels?
right, so prior planning, I think 5-10 years ago, everybody said, well, yeah, we can use street sweeping, let's do it. Everybody submitted that to the DEP, and the DEP said, no, you're street sweeping your roads twice a year, we're talking about like 2 times a week. So the expense of what it is very impactful, and then when you're street sweeping that much, you're really taking a lot of the surface off the roadway, now you're deteriorating your roadway and increasing those maintenance costs. So that is not something that we've incorporated into the recommendations, even though it is something the DEP does allow.
If something is if this is on private property, is it beholden upon the homeowner or the landowner to make these changes, or is this something the borough's responsible?
So it is ultimately the borough's responsibility, with the exception of the floor funeral home basin retrofit that I've included. The idea is that everything would be, the property is civil service, but the idea would be most everything else is in the public right of way to try and keep as much of it into the borough ownership as possible. This basin retrofit would obviously require coordination with floor funeral home. He maintains it now, the hope would be that he would continue to maintain it after the basin retrofit, but again, that would be discussions with him, that would be a project.
Because just that one project would pretty much meet our.
Yeah, that would be half the requirements for this 5-year period, yeah.
What are you planning on, you mentioned that you were going to do something along North Camden. Three of us live on North Camden,
Yeah.
but there's roads and there's curbs and sidewalks all along most of North Camden. What were you planning to do?
So this was gonna be a bioswale. The idea would be to provide some curb cuts or some structures that would allow, stormwater to get into the area between the curb and the sidewalk to infiltrate into that area. Instead of allowing it to run off and capture some of the sediment that way. But again, it's concept level, so we have to look into further if that would
Yeah.
work in that area.
Can you tell us a little bit more about a rain garden, what that would look like on like Barry Circle?
Yes, so a rain garden, per the recommendations that you guys provided in November, we did include all of the requirements from the Pennsylvania BMP manual in here for the different facilities, so I can show you what a rain garden would kind of look like. It's a small bold area that has landscaping in it, so it would just be primarily a depression in the center of Berry Circle where you do have that grass area already now and just a planted area that would hold stormwater and then infiltrate it into the ground.
So kind of like a retention basin.
Yeah, but on a smaller scale. But yes, exactly the same thing, just
There's one right around the corner from you on the
Hidden Meadows.
Hidden Meadows.
I thought it was a retention basin.
Rain garden is a more elegant.
yeah, it depends on the amount of water it holds and how deep the water gets. That's really the separating factor between the two. So yeah.
Well, and there's plantings in them, so, you know,
Yeah, you
plants
could-
that absorb the.
Yeah, yep, and we can do that in basins too.
How would you prioritize these projects? Do you see one as more impactful than?
Yeah, I do think the stream restoration would be the most impactful because that's about half the loading criteria that would need to be met. And I do think construction, maintenance, design wise, that's probably on the cheaper end of all of these. So that would be the first one that I would recommend the borough target.
Can you explain a little bit more about what that entails?
Stream restoration. So because this is targeting sediment, the primary cause of sediment is the stream banks themselves, because you're getting water running through it all the time. So as the water is running through it, it's picking up those soil particles, and that's how you're getting a lot of the sediment loading that we're finding. So what the stream restoration is meant to do is provide plantings that are gonna hold that soil in with their roots. So it's really providing plantings that are going to be able to survive water coming through, flooding, and also have those strong root systems to keep that soil in place. So it's primarily plantings, as you were saying.
Here, and this is near, is that the one you said near the covered bridge?
Yes.
Where specifically, like between the bridge and the dam?
Yeah,
or-
we haven't determined that. We did, go back there, and we have in the plan it's about 100 feet, but you can really do it anywhere in there. What we try and do is look for the area that we could do continuously 100 feet, but we haven't selected the exact 100 feet because again, this is still just a concept level. But
Yeah, I mean, just getting to that
yeah,
space can cause erosion in itself.
yeah.
So,
Right, and all of the, when we would go through this, any of the plans that meet the criteria, we'd have to go to the Bucks County Conservation District, to the DEP for permitting if necessary. So, erosion during construction is something that would be handled during the design and construction process.
Karen, I don't know the correct terminology, but the parking lots, I think Gilmore has this type
The
of parking lot.
pervious pavement.
Right, where the
Yeah.
water soaks into the parking lot
Yeah.
instead of running off. Couldn't we do some of that? I mean, if we did some of that, would that address some of these concerns?
You could if it was within the planning areas. What I find is that it has to be vacuumed out on a regular basis. That in and of itself is fairly expensive because not a lot of companies do that. And the pavement itself, you can really only do it in parking spaces themselves because the turning movements of vehicles really wear a porous pavement down. So you can only do it in limited areas, just the parking stalls themselves. So we haven't incorporated that, and the credit you get for that I don't think is even as great as you do for these BMPs that we've included in the plan.
I'm just wondering, I mean, if there is development occurring in any of these areas, whether if we required the developer to put this type of parking lot in, whether that would help. whether
Yeah,
that-
so the developments that meet the DEP criteria for permitting, they are already having to do BMP, so it would have to be up and above what they're already required to do from permitting, that would be the only thing that the borough could get credit for, and again, it would have to be within the planning areas. So it's, I don't know if municipality has really incorporated that in their plan, because they would have to occur within that 5 years, you'd have to know the developer was gonna agree to do this extra work. So that, it's more difficult to plan that within the 5 years.
I think as an extra project, looking ahead, it would be good to think about that in future projects, but not necessarily within this
Yeah.
requirement. But again, just the Pine Creek, like right now, I know there are dozens and dozens of ash trees that were killed by the ash borer. So it's really the large trees that maybe have caused a lot of this loss of the trees.
Yeah, so the plan that was created that says that, you know, we have these total maximum daily limits, I think it dates back to like the 80s. So it dates back to before, I think we had a lot of the ash borer issues. So it's been a continuous problem, just as stormwater's, you know, picking up everywhere, and a lot of construction before the 90s didn't have to do a lot of stormwater management. We're finding more water in the streets, and it's just, you know, moving that stuff along. So we're now trying to come back and fix some of the issues that we're finding.
Have the intensity of the storms that we've seen recently exasperated this issue, or is that?
Because they haven't done a new study, we're still using and basing everything off of those numbers from that original study. The DEP would have to fund and approve the new study that we're basing the total maximum daily loads off of, and then reassign them to all the municipalities for that to change. So that is something that's outside of our.
That's interesting, so we're going off of numbers from the 1980s?
Yeah, because of the amount of work and time that it creates, those reports, they've done them pretty much just once.
Must be glad,
Yeah,
because if they brought it up to date, we can't afford this, let alone trying to.
yeah, and now that is just for those plans, you know, the plan that we prepared, the pollution reduction plan is based on more current numbers. But it doesn't directly take into account, the intensity of rain, it's just based on the loading that's modeled in streams.
When you were talking about swales,
Yes,
I'm assuming water would go into a swale and then the water would go down into a storm drain on the street, let's say.
okay,
So I'm in a area where when building was done behind me, there was a swale behind my property and behind the new people. People have put their sheds, their gardens, they have built up on the other side of the swale, planted trees, so that when the water comes down, there's nowhere for it to go because the swale has been eliminated.
yeah,
And I see it all the time when I have rain.
mhm,
And like someone we know has water in her backyard because I'm sure there's nowhere for it to go. Because the swales have been eliminated by, you know, people's plantings of their backs and putting outbuildings over top of them. I was wondering whether there is something that people should be aware of when they buy their house. They can't do anything about that swale.
So new developments, we're incorporating easements over those areas to preserve the swales. It's tougher when you have older developments where something like that didn't occur, but you know, when permits come through and there is an easement shown, that gets flagged so that, it's-
Yeah.
there are things in place to reduce that from happening.
You should go through it again and.
Well, it may be back when your house was put in, that was put in by the builder
There-
and not recorded anywhere.
No, there was no swale because it was forest. And when New Britain Township built behind me, there was a swale between, the borough.
Yeah, but if it wasn't recorded
I don't know,
and all that, then it was a,
because there's definitely you could see where it was put and where it was supposed to run into. And that's storm drain. It's interesting to see how things change
Yeah.
over time. And then people complain they've got water in their basement.
going forward, will you be coming back again at some point in the not too distant future then to bring out what comments you have received and so on?
I was not planning on it. I suppose that's something that we could do. It's not required by the DEP if council's requesting that.
Are we approving this tonight? Is that?
There is no formal action required by the borough, but yes, the idea would be after the public comment period that we would be submitting it. And that was part of coming in November, is presenting all this information so that, when we would come during the public comment period, there was an understanding of what was in the plan.
Okay,
So-
yeah, so there is another, you're going to come before us and with the final thing.
No, she came in last November.
Oh,
But Karen will be coming, because there's gonna be significant expenditures, so,
Right.
yeah, you'll be.
When
Right,
we
we
get to
would
that
work
point.
through the
So we don't
plan.
have to say yay or nay to the expenditures.
No,
Correct.
not
We just say
yeah.
yay or
Yeah,
nay to a plan.
Karen will be back in after, probably even before, to choose, I guess, probably which
Right.
one you're gonna go with.
yeah, okay.
Do we have,
The most cost-effective one is the best to go with, I'm sure.
when do we find out how much these are gonna cost us?
I think that's one of the next steps, right?
Yeah, that would be part of the.
Karen's doing it in some of our other towns right now, and it's some sticker shock, so.
This is a non-funded requirement.
There's very limited
Yeah.
grants out there for any of this, even though every single municipality.
So there was
Yeah.
some mention of grants. I was gonna ask you if
Yeah, I mean,
you're obviously saying that.
everyone in the
not a lot out
office is
there.
on the lookout for them, because everybody wants to have their client apply for them, so if there is a funding source that becomes available, I know it's gonna be extremely competitive as well.
Why do I remember 80,000 or something like that? I don't remember that was ever thrown around or something.
Sounds like a nice,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm thinking.
Well, thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
44 Industrial Drive.
Yes. And we have. You're up.
Councilmember Howard. Kelly McGowan representing the applicant this evening. Wayne Keeper is here. Wayne prepared a plan that's subject to this application. Jude Visconto is here, the developer of the project. So this is 44 Industrial. This is a property you may be familiar with. It's actually a prior building that burned down. So this is a redevelopment of sorts. Property is vacant right now. What you can see, and I'll just point out here, this is Industrial Drive. You've got train tracks back here. This is the proposed building. Just under 30,000 square feet. It's in the industrial district. Uses proposed, I say uses, it is proposed to be a multi-tenant building, contractor uses, which are permitted by right. Don't know at this time how many tenants, what that ultimately is going to look like. Minimum square footage for each tenant is likely 2,500 square feet, but it could go up from there. And as you can see, maintaining the same configuration of the property as previously existed. It's a 2 driveway scenario, so you come in here, you have a bank of parking, go around, and then some additional parking spaces back here. Did go into the planning commission, received a recommendation from the planning commission. The plan is subject to a few waivers, which I'll go through with you. I'll say at the very beginning, we had a series of waivers. This evening, we are withdrawing the request for a waiver from installation of sidewalks. applicant will be proposing to install the sidewalks in lieu of that waiver. You can see there's some, probably what I would call minimal frontage, but notwithstanding that, we'll pull the sidewalk across the entire frontage of that property. This property is not the corner property. There's a property here, before you get up to the road, but that will provide some sidewalk there. We don't believe there's any in the balance, but that's not to say that that couldn't be subject to change with future redevelopment. So it's a good start. So the plan did receive some zoning relief previously. This plan takes advantage of that zoning relief, and nothing's changed materially since that point. First waiver that we're requesting is to permit one submission. This is a preliminary final. We are requesting from council this evening a preliminary final recommendation or approval, on the plan. Second waiver is to permit grading within the industrial drive or right of way. We are going to be cleaning up these intersections here. Actually, now that we're going to be installing sidewalk, that will also be requiring some additional work within that right of way. I'll note there is an existing, I'll call it a swale. Karen can probably correct me on that. It's not really defined swale. There is an inlet down right, like in this area right here. So we'll be certainly avoiding that. Third waiver is to not require construction of curb along Industrial Drive. We are still requesting that waiver. That is subject to a fee in lieu under your ordinance. There is no curbing. Again, for stormwater purposes, we're not proposing to change that condition along the frontage of the property. The next waiver is to not require 10% of the parking area to consist of landscaped areas. This is one of those requirements you generally see like in retail, commercial developments where you'll have those landscape islands. Because of the configuration of the parking, unless that we're requesting that waiver, you can see there are 2 ADA parking spaces right here. That's actually a crosswalk taking you there. What we envision are the doors for the units here with the parking straight across. So we're not proposing to take up any of that space with any additional landscape items or islands. Next waiver, skipping over the sidewalk, was to not require additional street trees. Again, we're not really proposing any additional improvements out to that area. This is highly vegetated over here, and there is some existing vegetation out there. Finally, we requested to not require a traffic impact study. These are general contractor uses. This is an industrial cul-de-sac. None of the traffic that will be generated by this building, by this development, is going to impact any of the intersections in the area to such an extent as to anticipate any additional improvements required. So we've requested that waiver. That takes us through all of the waivers. I would be happy, Jude would be happy to answer any questions you might have about the proposed use or otherwise about the plan.
If it's approved tonight, what's the timetable for construction?
Probably start laying development in about 2 months. That's what we'll get.
General idea of the usage of the facility?
Contractor services, HVAC, plumbers, people that need general storage, not really working out of this place, but kind of store trucks. They need the space, that's what they use it for. And as far as the guy size, we don't know yet. It's true flex. So some might come in and take 7,500, some might take 10,000. We don't know. So
You'll have the ability
we'll have the
to
ability
alter
to. Yep,
accordingly.
exactly.
And would you be able to, somebody comes in, stays for 2 years, leaves, and they have 75,000, you'd be able to again
Dismantle
alter and
it and
change?
alter it. Exactly.
And that's a good question. That actually brings up 2 things. Number one is the building. It is a flex space. So building code, it will be, constructed with that separation in mind. Second is parking. Parking is compliant. Parking was proposed, and Jude will have the ability to allocate or monitor the parking spaces as per the lease. So that's how that will be handled.
So there's no sketch plan for this? We haven't seen what the building will actually look like?
Well, like architectural.
Architectural.
Yeah. No, it's been through planning twice.
Is there a stretch plan? No.
Do you have an idea of what your construction's gonna look like?
I do, it's gonna be clear span across the building, it's gonna be metal. That'll probably be, just kind of what you're looking for, design, what colors too, is that you think about?
I don't know,
Anything we have?
I've never approved anything
We're looking
without
at like
seeing what
a
it's gonna look like.
tan building with some black doors to give it a little more appeal than a regular just dull building. So the garage doors will be on the one side. They'll have the option to pull it on the other side if they want to go through. Sorry guys.
The last rendering I saw, there were some decorative highlights in the building. It's not just, basically a pole barn. It looked more like the buildings that are in that area. There's an engineering building across the street. It's kind of similar to that look.
Warehouse type.
Yes,
I mean, like, Chan Engine.
yeah, Shannon,
Yes.
exactly. They'll go out like that.
It's a very elegant looking building.
So it's gonna fit the other. It's
Yeah,
not gonna
exactly.
stand out.
I think this was, might have been mentioned some time ago. On the trees, the street trees, there's in lieu of.
There are two existing trees there. We're going to try to preserve that. But we just didn't want to add the additional trees. There's not really a lot of room for them to use.
We're not arguing that. We could find a good place.
And Peter, I can go through the fees in lieu after council's that.
Okay.
Is there gonna be landscaping like in the front, the frontage? That is on Industrial Drive, is there gonna be landscaping along the front? Or-
The only landscape that's shown on the plan is the two existing trees that will hopefully remain. The one is close to some grading. There's a note on there that will replace it if need be. I'm sure at some point they may do some foundation plantings separate from the subdivision or land development
It would be
approval.
helpful to make it not so stark.
Any other discussions or questions?
288 parking spaces you were talking about, that meets any and all,
Yes,
wherever federal law.
for number and grading.
Peter, would you like me to run through that?
Yes,
draft
please.
resolution? So the applicant would be granted the requested waivers, noting that the sidewalk waiver is removed with respect to the waiver from Saldo Section 385-10, that's to permit one submission for preliminary and final, and 385-17.f to permit grading within the industrial drive right of way, from 385-21.b with respect to the curb, subject to payment of a fee in lieu in the amount of $5,100. From 385-22C for the landscaping within the parking area, subject to payment of a fee in lieu in the amount of $6,500. From salary section 385-24.a, from the requirement for 5 additional street trees, subject to a payment of a fee in lieu of $1,750. And from section 385-39.f for the traffic study, the applicant will comply with Karen's review letter dated July 11, 2023. Will execute stormwater and land development and escrow agreements, and it sounds like Kelly and I will have to do that fast so that you can get to work in 2 months, which is great. Satisfy any and all outstanding invoices from the borough and otherwise comply with the terms of the resolution. That's the resolution that's before you this evening in draft form.
Any discussion? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the do we make a resolution then? Is that the?
Yep, you'll approve the resolution as drafted with the exception of the removal of the waiver for sidewalk.
Oh, do you have anything more to add or?
No, I'm still confused why,
I think you're thinking of the MUO where architectural renderings are required. So that's why you've
This
seen
is an
them.
industrial park.
But it's
so
not,
because it's in an industrial
Yeah.
park, we don't need to.
So the MUO dictates that you need to see a architectural rendering, because that has a lot to do with what's.
And the ordinance requires it for the MUO, for something like this, the ordinance does not, it's not, it's your ordinances. Now, we can talk about, not for these guys, we can talk about whether or not you wanna think about working on that, but at least for now, it's not
No,
required for
just,
this
I
application.
mean, I'm gonna vote for it, but I'm just throwing.
I know, because the last two we've seen renderings.
I don't think I've ever approved any
I think
development where
everything
we
we've
haven't
done,
been presented with
I
a sketch.
think everything we've done has been MUO, actually.
Yeah, everything lately, yeah, for last year or so has been.
And even Jude's prior project was MUO too.
That was.
But it's a really great point, Tom. I think it's very helpful to you guys. And maybe one of the things we can do is on a staff or planning commission level, just make it clear to applicants that, hey, council's gonna wanna see this. Because I think Jude actually has something that, at least a draft that he could have shared with you, but nobody gave them a heads up, which is.
I've never seen anything, I've only seen these.
But we can work on that, Tom. It's very good.
Any further discussion?
You didn't get it first and second. I'm still trying to write a name in here.
I will make that.
Yeah, thank you.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None passes.
Kelly, we'll use the 471 Butler agreement, so. Or not 471, whatever it's up,
Whatever
whatever.
that address
Sorry.
is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jude. Good to see you.
Thank you.
too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jude.
Sorry, that was my fault. I was reading.
Where we're starting.
Yep. Next one, you get it.
This is
Next one. Nice one. Yeah.
471 Butler Avenue, yes.
There's-
Oh, there's a road break for you.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what Jude's place is going
Yeah.
You don't tell
Nice
Jude.
work.
So Kelly McGowan representing the applicants this evening. This is a proposal for, and I apologize, Colby Carr, also representing the applicant, is proposing a redevelopment of corner at Butler Avenue 471 for a project that we're referring to as the residences, it's hard to say, at New Britain. So this is a 100-unit apartment building proposed. It is being proposed consistent where we just ended with your MUO ordinance. So the features that you see, starting with the architecture are those features and include those both design elements and site elements required by the MUO ordinance. This is the frontage of Butler, and then this is Shady Retreat Road here. I'm going to start at the end, I think. So I can give you an idea of the site. It's an irregular site.
So excuse me for a minute, Kelly.
Sure,
Everybody
please.
wants to know, this is the Detweiler house. It's
Thank
right
you, Don.
across from-
Yes.
It's that corner there.
Yes. So here you see, this is our basic site plan, our zoning plan. This is sketch plan only. We're not asking council for anything this evening other than your comments, and your thoughts on what we are proposing. So what you can see here, as I said, here's Shady Retreat Road, here's Butler. Properties are regular in shape, both properties. This is actually two parcels. So the front property is this very irregular, not quite a triangle, they call that a rhombus. And then there is the large rectangular piece in the back. That is almost entirely floodplain. So no development is proposed on that piece. This you can see in blue is the floodplain line. We propose some ancillary parking, some extra parking in the back, and we'll go through those parking numbers as well. But other than that, and that is all outside of the floodplain. Other than that, that parcel in connection with this development will all be left open. We do have a review letter from Karen. One of the zoning comments, probably the primary zoning comment that we have here, is that this parcel, when the MUO overlay was enacted, was not included within that overlay. So as part of this proposal, we would be requesting or looking for a map amendment in order to include that parcel, and that facilitates this development.
So that would just be for that parking area.
No, it would be, I think, Mike
Yeah,
was
so the
telling me
whole
we need
parcel
to
would
include
get
the whole
pulled in, and
parcel.
then as part of this project, that parcel will be, I mean, it's floodplain, it'll be preserved and, so pulling it into the MUO makes sense from a planning and legal standpoint. And I think staff supports, doing that.
I just don't know what the benefit is, that's.
The benefit is getting the necessary land to allow this building to work down here at the bottom. We tried to think about whether or not there was a way to do it through variances, or this is just the right way to do it. To do it right and actually put it into the MUO and have it so that the project complies with the MUO rather than seeking some kind of crazy zoning relief and just pointing out that parcel's back.
Yeah, it would be, and also in all of our zoning tables, everything is based upon the tract area. So that's how we get to,
That's how you can get 100.
the ability to do that, correct? And imperfect, you name it, yep. So that's what the project looks like on paper. I'll say, before we get into some of the sketches, I'll show you what you can see. So the grade allows, I should say, a rear entry into what will be an underground parking area. So that you can see, this is an existing drive back here. You'll see that comes in to the rear of the building. You will also see right here, this is a second driveway. How the grade works, this is actually at grade. So this driveway will come in under, this driveway will come in at grade. And I'll show you kind of how that works within the sketches when we get there. You can also see this triangle piece here in the middle, this courtyard, that is actually at the second floor. So that is above both of those floors. And that is an open courtyard in the center of what will be the apartment building. There's retail in the front. MUO requires a commercial component, so we're showing that along the frontage of Butler. And this right here in the corner is also we're calling it a public space. Again, as your MUO refers to it, outdoor courtyard area. We're envisioning having some commercial in that area as well that would take advantage of that portion of the property. So that's the kind of the black and white. This is the image. It shows us 3 stories. It's a 3-story building. As I said before, in the back, when we get to that is an underground parking. So we are consistent with height requirements and those requirements of the MUO. And you'll see some of those features with the roof here. So as I mentioned, we have the corner. This is the corner feature, public space. At this time, again, as I said, it's kind of envisioned to be something that plays off of both for the residents, but also some commercial area within the first floor of that building. That's what we're showing there. This is here, the intersection. We have, and Colby even as of this afternoon, met with Chris Luce, the architect, to continue working through architecture. One of the comments we heard at the Planning Commission was a real focus on detail. So we talked about things like shutters and the cupolas and all of those things. So Colby went back again before this meeting so we could kind of fine tune that and make sure that all worked. And that's exactly what we discussed. So everything you're seeing here is what they're proposing. So,
Could that
yep.
ultimately run outdoor area? I mean, you're talking about combining it with some kind of commercial. Could that potentially be a restaurant?
So the only thing we bumped into with restaurants is parking.
Okay.
Yeah, because we looked at that. A lot of the MUO uses and some of the commercial uses we look at really play on the ability of the residents to have, like those service uses. So cafe is one of them. So that's kind of one that's in all of our heads to have out there. Otherwise, we're working through that. We're taking advantage of shared parking, the shared parking analysis that we can do. But so that is something, it's a great question, something that we have to visit.
And was there, and I may be way past the time that this discussed prior, but with all of these as apartments, was there ever any consideration, discussion, look into instead of apartments, call them whatever you want, condos, townhomes, not an apartment?
So I'll answer for Colby and then I'll let Colby answer. Townhomes don't lay out really well on this property. It's an odd property. So that doesn't really work. Condos, that's just a form of ownership, right? So any of these buildings could for rent apartments. What's proposed here, and I'll show you the floor plan, wouldn't really work for a condo as it's designed because they're small units. And I'll take you through and show you that unit size and kind of the demographic or the type of individual who, and I say individual because some of these are small units, or individuals who may be leasing the space. So that.
You're not thinking of making this 55 and over?
No. That has not ever come up. So this is the interior courtyard that I mentioned. So it's for the use of the residents. And these are the images that we do think are gonna change. And the reason why, not change in concept or not change in use or anything like that, but you see how in the initial imagining, there were a lot of like garden area. The thought now is to give some attention to this area as a more usable area for the residents. So instead of taking up larger areas with just a garden feature, they're thinking of like passive active recreation, you know, like what did you throw out there today?
Cornhole, maybe like a little putting green, a little, this is gonna be a pet-friendly building, so a little area caged in for animals to go to the bathroom, play with other dogs.
Yeah, so that's just kind of how that part is evolving, and that's what we're thinking through in terms of that space. But it is a nice open area for them.
And that's on the second floor, you say? So the first floor is under.
So we should go to that because it is like visualizing. So this is our floor level plans. So this is, as I was explaining before, this is the ground, and I say ground level, but it's really underground. So this is the level of the garage, parking garage, that's accessible at the top of or at the back of the building, top of the plan. And that's what we're showing there. You'll see elevators here, some maintenance and storage, proposing trash to be available for pickup in the rear. But otherwise, it's really just straight parking.
Okay, so you're counting one of the levels as the garage?
Correct.
Okay.
So it's ground level and then 3 stories of usable space. One of which, so then our first floor plan is again, parking. However, that parking comes in, this is the frontage, that's the first floor. So that's your commercial area there. You see we're pulling the commercial area to that corner right there. There's a requirement, the MUO requirement is 5,000 square feet. Right now we're showing, it looks like just under 8,300 square feet, just because of how it lays out, frankly, to have some of that extra space. But again, we'll be working through that in finalizing the floor plans. So then you get up, so these are the units I was talking about. So this is second floor and third floor. So you'll see there are multiple unit types. You'll see they're kind of grouped together. Very few 2 bedrooms, most of them 1 bedroom. That actually helps with the parking requirement as well. For that type of unit. The 2 bedrooms, the larger units, you'll see are kind of in the more ideal locations in the floor plan. And then you have the smaller units. These studio units this is 525 square feet, 487 square feet. So that gives you an idea of the type of units that are going to be available. They go all the way up to, the largest would be just over 1,200.
Do you see parking as being a factor that impacts a lot of what you're trying to do, want to do, both on the commercial side and on the apartment side?
I can start with
lack
that.
thereof
Sure.
a problem?
So Rob Cunningham, who's our engineer, was at the meeting this afternoon with Chris Luce, and I made a comment about the capacity of the building next door, the Mike Meister's building. The 98 units in the front at full capacity only had an average of about 60 cars parked there. So 98 units rented were 60 to 65 cars on a daily basis. I thought that was very interesting when I heard that.
That seems really low.
Yeah, it does seem low. I'm just hearing that for the first time.
Mhm.
So parking is always, right, drives, yeah, a lot of things. So the answer to that question is yes. Not even that notwithstanding, and part of the reason why we have some of those extra spaces in the back is you're not gonna build a building, like, he can't lease a building, he can't park in. And, and he can't have tenants have available spaces in. So that's why we did tier the parking, make sure we had the ample parking. And with the shared parking analysis, with the frontage with the commercial space, we don't, especially that minimal, I don't wanna call it minimal, 8,000 square feet, but it's minimal, it's not it's not a grocery store, shopping center, or anything like that. That we don't anticipate to be a driver of parking or driver of traffic, especially being on Butler.
I mean, my concerns mainly from the parking side of things, whether it's the lack thereof, is really more on the commercial aspect of it. Is I don't want anybody that's considering putting a business in here being put off by the fact that, well, hey, who's gonna, where's somebody gonna find the parking if I actually have, if a restaurant, cafe, whatever might want to come in, but they're gonna look at it and say, parking is an issue.
So with the planning commission, and it's a shame Rob isn't here, because Rob's office is actually in the other apartment building we're referring to it. His office sits on the corner, so, he always tells us he watches the traffic and parking, that sort of thing. So that building, actually has the parking on Butler, which is a question for council, really, with respect to parking on Butler, additional parallel spaces on Butler, and if that's something that you feel is attractive or, is something that could help the situation you're describing, which is, hey, I wanna run into this cafe, do I have, the available parking to just do that? So that's certainly a conversation, as I said, I would ask council.
Probably would like to, because in the fullness of time, looking up to Doylestown, they make a tremendous amount of money off the parking meters. I don't see us doing that anytime in the next 5 years, but 10 or 15 years down the road, we would like, I think, parking along there. And the bump outs for trees along to help.
Sure.
I think when this came in front of the planning commission, I think Jeff it was, who said that he did want to have parking.
The parking.
along Butler.
So the ground level parking behind the retail actually will have a roof over it.
Yes, it's also interior, that's correct.
What does that look like on the sketch plan? That side of the building, the retail is across the front.
Correct. Like, see here?
So the entrance is in the rear.
You mean the render, the architectural rendering?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I don't remember, you
Sure.
can't see the parking?
And it's all underground.
You can't, no, you cannot see the
You'll see
parking.
the door on the one.
I mean, I understand
Yeah.
it's
I
underground,
know what you're asking.
but then there's a whole level of parking.
Still underground, no, still underground. There's two levels
So
underground.
this is, and I didn't focus on this, you're right. So this is that elevation, see the car driving in,
Drives inside,
it drives inside.
Is that the back or the
So
side?
it's,
side.
this is the side, so this is that front.
Okay.
So are there
Correct.
apartments or that's just all parking?
This is parking,
Oh.
yeah, commercial at the front,
So you only have two levels of
Parking here.
apartments.
correct,
Interesting.
with the
Yeah,
commercial.
the first,
parking in the
yeah,
front.
first floor is just the
It's
commercial
all
parking. Second and third floor are the units.
Right.
But that goes in underneath that ground.
Mhm.
Right, right.
I like
And then
those too.
that runs into that.
Do you envision, again, complementing the commercial spaces
Sure.
out front? Somebody comes along, Butler Ave, sees this commercial space in there and decides that I want to stop in there. Are they going to be able to, I'll use the word recognize, where the parking is gonna be, where I'm gonna go, hey, I wanna stop here, where the hell do I
Right.
park?
It's going to end up, you're right, you're going to have to be familiar with it. It's going to be a destination because we're not proposing any additional curb cuts on Butler. In fact, closing up the existing driveway on Butler. So to your point, if you're coming, down Butler in towards Doylestown, you will be able to make that left.
Yep.
If you react, okay, yeah, sure, I can do that. Coming up the other way, parking spaces along the front, right, we'll have availability there. But to your point, if they're taken, you will go past it.
So
There's not a turn.
are you gonna have any signage that says,
I think we
parking
should,
this way?
it's one of those things we should be covering with signage.
Are you separating the parking for?
Big neon thing
Well,
out here, it
you
says
turn
parking
here.
on the back with
Is
an
the
arrow,
parking on the
flashing
ground for the
arrow, but
residents?
Yeah, that.
And also for the people who wanna go in
Right.
under there to go shopping?
Correct. And so there will be an
Yeah.
entrance.
They have to. So are the residents gonna have assigned parking, like a, 108 apartment is gonna have 108 written on
I
it?
would anticipate you're
There
probably,
was some talks about
yeah,
that.
gonna get there.
In a bill, yeah.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
saying, if I'm gonna go,
Yeah.
if I'm gonna go get a
Potentially.
donut in the retail place and I'm gonna park underground, I might just park at 108 because it's empty. And then if 108 comes in, there's a, who's in my parking
I
spot?
I think you'd be inhibited from even going underground
I-
because only people that are gonna know it's there are people that
It'd
live
be for
there.
residents,
Yeah.
the backside's gonna be mainly for residents.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the general public is going to go in there.
And just to give you numbers, so, right, that might help the conversation, the ground floor parking is 82 spaces. So you're close, you're getting close to one per unit just on that floor. And then the first floor, which again would be accessible from the side, that's another 76. So, and then we do have that, extra, and our overflow
Right.
parking.
So everybody would be
Employees,
going
call it,
into that first
whatever.
floor.
So if people get visitors, they would park in the.
For visitors, correct.
That makes sense.
Yeah, correct, something like that. But yes, really good questions, like that's gonna be the stuff that we're gonna figure out as we go through. As I said, this is just a sketch plan. Rob still has to really put a lot of nuts and bolts into a land development plan, or with stormwater, all those kinds of things. But we did want to get a sketch plan in front of you, both for purposes of the concept and the plan, also to flesh out any, like I said, zoning issues or anything else.
I still have a real issue
Mhm.
with that curve on Shady Retreat Road. I live
And
there.
that,
Okay.
And I take that every day. I leave, I go to work that way. I come home, the traffic light at Shady Retreat. That curve there, it's already a nightmare, very tight. And that's where your entrance is. So people are gonna be stopped, people are gonna be coming around, and that could be a really, I think, a dangerous intersection. So I don't know how you can address that.
Are you talking about the intersection where the light is or in the back?
No, in the
Or
back.
that
You're saying-
By the creek.
Yeah.
I would imagine that's gonna open up though when he goes to do what he's gotta do.
Yeah, so there's currently a driveway in the back of the property.
Right.
Like anyone here could pull in and pull out into 202 or come the other way.
Very tight.
As you're pulling out of the back, it really does open up. You can see both sides very clear. I take my dog to Holiday House there. When I'm coming from Chalfont, coming around the bend that way, I know what you're talking about. It's that house on the corner on the other side.
Schoolhouse.
You have to like whip around.
Right.
That house wasn't there, it'd be a lot easier.
Oh, yeah,
It's
I
very
mean,
narrow there.
But the issue is you do have the house there. So I wasn't sure if you were planning to widen that area at all, because I can't tell you how many times that I have had to slam on the brake as I'm approaching that curve because somebody's coming around and they're over in my lane.
Well, and if you have a big truck or something.
Yeah, or a
going
big
around there.
truck or.
They
or
don't
a,
anticipate the tightness of that curve.
No.
So visitors to go visit an apartment dweller
Mhm.
would park on that ground level. And then is there an elevator to go up from
There will
that?
be an elevator, yes, yes. There'll be access,
Oh, it has to go to
I
the
think we're-
second floor too, I guess.
oh, sure. I think we're showing just.
That was in the back, wasn't it?
We can find that.
I thought you said it was.
How do you prevent this from becoming a
Elevator,
dorm
yeah.
for Del Val students?
Yeah.
Rent.
Mhm.
One. I don't know what the other apartment building is experiencing with respect to that, with their occupancy. The last conversation I had about that was they weren't seeing that type of student occupancy there. I don't know if that's the case. Obviously you can't, like, fair housing, you can't really
This will
do
be
anything
more
about offering
expensive
something for
than-
rent, right?
Would be to pay room and board at.
Oh, the units are smaller, so you're only gonna probably get one person in there.
Yeah,
So that
400
one
and
person's
some
gonna
odd
have to
square
pick up
feet,
the
that's
rent.
pretty small.
You know, what's interesting though is that, just what Kelly just said, that we've seen it too, that we are not, I thought we'd see a lot more college kids in the gatherings, and we don't. I see a lot of
They say that it's
retired people.
Retired people.
I
Yeah,
see,
a lot.
this is, you were asking about 55, this is probably gonna be 75 and over. Because it'll be people that are downsizing, people that are just single, that don't wanna go into these smaller units and not have to worry about maintaining something.
Are these luxury apartments, is that how you're going to?
Market them as luxury.
They're really nice, yeah.
Yeah. And looking at the exterior,
Yeah.
that would have been my answer, that there's gonna have to be that level for that building.
I've got a couple of questions.
Sure.
From the street tree, committee, you have we're looking for the sidewalks and the streets to be friendly to people and dog owners and so on. The public area that you show, it's not obvious that this is something that a person walking by will think that, we're invited to sit here and pet the dog or whatever. It looks kind of like this is
Except that,
fenced off so that it isn't actually very inviting to people walking by. Or people might think that, I can only sit there if I'm using the
If I live there.
coffee. It's something that invites them
it's
in.
just like opening it up.
Yeah,
Wonder-
and it would be really nice to have a water fountain for people and dogs. We all like pets and all, but frankly, the dog wants to drink.
That's a good idea.
And it also is generally helps people to say, this is for you all.
Is that ground level, street level, or are there steps on that side where
So
the
there are-
lamp post is to
yeah,
go
so
up to it?
Final grading hasn't been done, as of right now, it's a walk up. Bob Cunningham told me, this building's gonna be approximately 3 feet up.
Yeah.
Off ground level, just because of how the property itself works, so that's why you see, like the walk-ups on Butler.
If you were to have a bench and
Mhm.
like a little water fountain
Mhm.
on the sidewalk end, that would probably, to your credit, deter people from coming up and sitting in what might be a coffee area
Sure.
or so on. The other thing, there's that lovely open space in back.
Mhm.
And I know some of us have idly thought that, that whole stretch of Cook's Run, running down through there should in some long-term way be preserved by the borough. So you don't have people running mud bikes or whatever back there. It's not clear to me in your talk, who is going to maintain that, to pick up the trash and all that stuff. Is it going to be groomed in any way or just leave it as more or less as is?
So it is floodplain, so we're not going to be, otherwise disturbing
Okay,
that area. So yes, it would be as it is. I think at one point we did have discussion about like some usability back there, but because it's the floodplain, we've shied away from that.
Yeah.
Opening up that can of worms, so to speak. It is proposed, to be left undisturbed, and as Mike pointed out, it being a part of the MUO and a part of this development, what has effectively then happened is all of the development on that would have been theoretically possible on that property is all focused on front.
And we can work with the developer to put restrictions on it, and I'm sure, I am confident that we can figure out how to preserve that
Yeah.
area that's there.
Yeah.
Can that be,
Because these guys don't wanna do anything with it.
Yeah.
can that be in any way help us with the Karen's presentation as far as the stormwater? I mean, is there anything within what that area?
Kara would have to look at her special map.
Yeah.
Would be able to be,
Right now.
you know,
Just for all, in Cook's Run, all the way down there, the run is a very wide, nice marshy natural lands. And, it would be good if the borough was,
For people like the drawing area, so you could.
of course
to take over.
I did think of the same thing when she was presenting
Yeah.
about the trip and that.
if there were
Yeah, I
I
wonder
do.
if
that area
that
that could be something you could create that
Right.
would
Yeah.
Then
enhance.
contribute to your,
Yes.
Well, you have the bike and hike path right across the street.
Well, it's
I'm
outside
sure
the
we can
planning
figure out
areas,
something
but
really cool
I mean,
to do.
anywhere could be used for stream bank restoration that meets the criteria, so that would be the potential.
Oh,
we
okay.
could certainly look,
Yeah, and the
Certainly talk
benefit
about
of that
that.
would be that we have a property owner we can work with on it. That's,
When you talk about the walkers and people with the dogs and stuff like that, do you have anything, and there's a lot of people that like to ride bikes. Do you have anything that in any way makes it easy for somebody, again, if they're riding their bikes along and they want to stop for a few minutes, you'd like to be able to put your bike and lock it up someplace
yeah, I mean,
secure,
that,
whether or not you're talking about a nicer
Bike
bike
rack.
rack.
bike
not-
rack,
Not
sure.
talking about some
Yeah.
rusty looking
Yep.
thing, but
That could be at the garage too. But what about, and I forget if I mentioned this, in planning commission or not, but, have you looked at, having any electric, charging stations in the parking
It
garage?
never came up, and that's a very good opinion.
you may as well wire it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do something now.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I threw out there, you probably know, Doylestown Borough just enacted their EV ordinance. So it's something, yes, it's here,
Has to.
so.
You're gonna have to do
It's
it.
probably
now.
I need it eventually.
it's
Yeah.
coming.
Yep.
It's here.
I'll just put it in now.
You may have, I have a daughter that lives in New York, and they've had troubles with the batteries on electric bicycles catching fire.
Really?
And, there's no standards whatsoever for making the batteries. So it's a worrisome thing, because people bring the bike in their apartment and plug it in
Wow.
and go to sleep, and, the lithium battery blows up.
Wow.
Again, the cost,
Well, that's
part of the
scary.
reason, again, for talking about bikers, those electric bikes can be extremely expensive.
Right.
And they're getting bigger and bigger.
Secure.
That's why we kick them into their apartment, right? You don't wanna leave them.
And I-
Yeah.
and that's, for those people that are living there, that's fine, I'm talking more about just, again,
But
people
then they're
that just
gonna catch
pass
fire
it
in
by
that corner.
and
If you
want to
could
stop
rent
for
in
a
the
few minutes
secure area
at a shop.
in the basement,
I was gonna say,
which might kill two birds with one
Yeah, it's
stone.
all concrete down there, so keep all the electric bikes in the
Right.
basement,
And-
concrete area.
Are you gonna have any like storage areas for
Yeah.
alcohol?
There are
Absolutely.
storage areas shown. Yeah, I don't think they've been fully designed. I just wanted to point out while we're talking about the outside space, we are showing enhanced public space in the front, which is, looks like almost a double sidewalk along the frontage. So that would certainly facilitate, again, as part of your public space requirement, under the ordinance. We're showing that for the entirety of the length of the building.
Is that, are we bumping back the curb like across the street?
So that's what the discussion was, I think I
Yeah.
heard,
Yeah.
that parking
So
was,
that goes back, so that will be behind the parking in the front.
correct,
Gotcha.
correct. So, and again, final grade, we know the building's gonna be up about 3 feet, so we're gonna have to figure out, you know, as we progress, how that will work.
This is really great development.
Thank you.
I like it too. I do share your concern about the traffic on that curve. You know, people trying to get in and park, having a visual when you're coming from either direction. An additional 100 cars, you know, just in that confined space, coming and going.
Well, it's not
Sounds-
just their cars, excuse me, it's not just their cars, but on the other side of the street, what is it called, the Gathering? That comes out onto Shady Retreat also.
Right.
So you've got
Right.
Yeah.
both of them coming out.
That's right.
Correct, and that's kind of how this was cited,
Right.
that access. to
And
the
you
street.
can see the traffic increase already from the gathering, so,
On
that line of sight in that curve especially
What's on
is
the left
is a concern.
side of your building.
So that's just our setback, side yard setback, 25 feet.
Okay, so no drive, no
No,
traffic going
No,
back there at all?
exactly, no, we cut that off. So I said, that curve cut's going away. So it's all going to be here. So a full traffic study is required. So, you know, we know that. So we'll be doing the traffic study. In connection with the traffic study, we'll do, you know, driveway analysis for each entrance, site distance, that type of thing. And then, yeah, it's hard to kind of, you know, it's hard to talk about traffic when you have the numbers. When you don't have the numbers, you know, yeah, we're gonna have to look at it.
Could that, is there an option, a possibility even for on that back left side there to have essentially just a one directional, one lane, one way, where it's only coming out so that you could relieve
An
a
exit.
degree of the traffic coming out on the Shady Retreat? And if they were just coming out that backside, and people that could turn right there would be able to avoid the light. And if they're leaving from an apartment standpoint, I don't know,
Yeah,
someone
yeah.
who's living
Yeah,
there.
we would be able
Really
to
have
do
to be
that.
right
If they
turn
could-
only.
You got a 25-foot distance there, and then they're also required to do a buffer zone there. And I can tell you the lot next door, that lady, that young couple, they're gonna require that buffer zone. Okay, and so
There's
by
a reason
taking
we want
that out,
that 25 feet there,
unless you can get her to sell to them, they're,
which would be.
which would make, I mean, I already said something to her because she calls and
Yeah.
complains about them all the time. And I said, if you don't
Which-
like it, I
which
said, why
lot?
don't you,
Which
sell
lot?
the builder you want? But they're gonna need that buffer, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And then PennDOT's gonna dictate, when they take that curb cut, I'll bet you a dinner that PennDOT won't give it back. PennDOT is not
Yes,
real forgiving with curb cuts.
yeah. Well, I keep saying it's my new favorite thing to say, I'm not inviting PennDOT to a party they're not invited to.
Isn't that the truth?
That-
There was one
No.
other thing that planning mentioned, was, when you take down that stone building, we asked, if there was a
Yes.
chance you could reuse that stone
Yes.
in that wall.
Absolutely. I don't want to say in that wall, it's gonna be
Yeah.
reused.
Okay.
We're gonna look at that, but yeah.
If you flip to the corner here, we talked this afternoon about putting it below the brick on the corner, there's some stone. It's below the residence that New Britain. See, underneath the brick, there's stone there. We talked about putting it on there.
Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up. There were 3 comments, I think, with respect to the building. And the one was the reuse of the stone. The other one was putting a plaque or some type of sign on the front.
Look at that while I'm-
Yeah, exactly. And then there was one other comment, which was,
We're gonna let the historical society walk through it before you demo.
and let this, have the
Yeah.
preservation committee come in, John, you've got them memorized.
Yeah.
Come in before access to the.
I promised them that was gonna happen, but
Yeah.
let them turn out.
Yeah, no, we've got them, so yes.
So I had a meeting with the historical preservation group, and I asked them for a vote, and I got a 50-50 vote, but they all understood that the only way that this project can work is by losing the house. So their conditions were to see about using as much of the stone as they can reuse to allow the preservation committee to walk through the house before they demo it. So once it's empty, they want to see if they can get souvenirs or something like that out of it. And then putting a plaque out front that says this was the Detweiler's house. The interesting thing about that is then the girls all started talking about what's the historical value to the Detweilers. And so somebody was going to research that to find out why it was the Detweiler School and why it was the Detweiler's house.
You know those street signs that they
Yep.
have?
That's what they're after.
No, I think that'd be cool.
That's what
So
they're
it
after.
would really set off their building too.
Oh, I understand, so one of the street as opposed to the plaque on the building.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right,
historical
right.
site.
Okay.
If it is.
This is where the Detweilers live.
Yeah.
Former site of the Detweiler.
When I said to him, I said, you gotta tell me what the historical value is.
Yeah, we gotta figure out where they were.
What's that?
Who were the Detweilers?
Well, that's what we all started
That's a
asking.
big question.
And it was interesting because nobody could answer that question.
Not even Bruce?
Bruce had left at that point.
Oh, we gotta get him back.
Yeah, he had left at that point. But the, who was it? Jackie was gonna go do research on
Make sure they didn't do anything offensive.
it. Yeah.
Getting late, people.
I
Like,
know.
that's a great solicitor comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they're fine.
So we appreciate all the comments. We'll take all of this, start to, as I said, move the plan forward in a more concrete way with some plans. They're still working through architecture. We'll do streetscape, give you some ideas on the streetscape, incorporate some of these things. And then, hopefully be in a position, where we're moving forward, with a preliminary plan. Mike, I think that the map amendment probably comes first.
Yes. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
What is your hoped for timetable as far as when you hope to start construction and when you hope to be finished?
We would love to have a shovel in the ground come 2025. We hope to be finished by 2026.
Yeah, the long lead items there is, NPDES permit. We don't have PennDOT, so that's good. Planning, we haven't talked about that, but DEP, so I think 2025 is probably pretty soon.
Yeah, we had the Borough, shouldn't be the long lead.
Yeah, we'll hopefully keep this project moving, at least a lot faster than the vet hospital.
To show it favorability
Yeah, it's just a
to
better project.
Yeah, it is.
businesses, contractors, whatever's in
So,
the construction
Hopefully
phase.
as one.
Yeah, my headquarters is in Chalfont on 202.
So yeah, the local.
Awesome.
Good.
Okay.
I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see in the audience, there is nobody here.
Well, we gotta do that. Listen, we talked a little bit about the MUO. Are you folks in agreement just to hold and let you folks sit down with planning? Okay, great. That will make a lot of people happy. Let's get this, we can run through this, do you mind? Okay. Manager's report, I put it in there, but I want to highlight a couple things I had also put in front of you. Friends of New Britain Parks, Best Lamontagne, it will be starting to give us financial reports of the Friends of New Britain. You have one in front of you now. You also have Dart South, that's the new route that Dart just put together. They're having a grand opening on August 22nd, 24th at 11 o'clock. And that will be down by Street Road at where PF Chang's Home Depot, down that area. You folks are all welcome to go. We don't have to RSVP or anything like that, but they're gonna do a
Is that
ribbon
what they
cutting.
call is that what the bus route from Doylestown to Warrington, is that the end of the route?
That'll be the end of the route down there. So, they're gonna do a ribbon cutting down there. Just to give you a quick update, we talked a little bit about, or I know I've talked to a couple of you. I am sitting down with Chalfont to work on, hopefully before the end of the year, what a public works department, shared public works department would look like between the Borough and Chalfont. I think there's a strong possibility that is something that this borough really lacks, and needs to do. So I will keep you posted on that. We don't have a lot of details as of right now. Sean and I are starting to write it. But to talk about the street sweeping earlier, we get street swept once a year, and that's gonna be coming up at the end of August, beginning of September. You'll see Chalfont's sweeper going through here and sweeping all our roads. Our roads are really bad. Sweeping really helps in the big picture of keeping the weeds down the curb lines. If you see neighbors, friends, anybody pushing grass in the street, please get them to stop. Because all it does is clog up your storm sewers and it makes weeds grow, which then separates the joint lines, which then allows water to get underneath the road and deteriorates the road. It's one of the biggest killer roads.
Are there gonna be signs posted so people can take their cars off the street?
No.
That's what I thought.
Nope. We're trying to reduce our sign pollution. This borough is big on sign pollution.
Well, I don't mean that, I meant for street sweeping.
Yeah, no, we'll try to pound out an email to everybody that has it, but
So if there's a car parked there
He
and
goes
there's
right
grass
around
and
it.
weeds,
he goes
it's
right
not
around.
gonna be taken care of because the car's parked there,
Right.
but they didn't get a notice.
Right, I can't do
Okay.
9 miles of notices
Okay.
to everybody, and it still won't work. I'm speaking from experience because we swept over in Hatfield 4 times a year, and you just go around. So,
John, do you think, any partnership with Chalfont, do you see that there being an improvement in the quality of what we get in the way of the public works?
cool, big time.
And some possible cost savings?
Cost savings, it's hard to put cost savings because right now we are reactive, we're not proactive. And you can see it in our roads. Our roads are terrible. We paved, a couple of years ago, did a massive paving, not as much as I wanted, but we did get some of them done, but we still have a third of our roads that still need to be paved badly. So to answer your question, with cost savings, we're not doing anything now, other than being reactive. A sign gets knocked down, I pay to go get that and put it back up. So what these guys will do is they are out and about all the time. So they will do work on storm water inlets. They will put new signs up when they're faded. I just did that. What's that? No, they won't do that. I'm still working on that
You
one.
had a few potholes repaired, I noticed.
Yep, just recently.
Was that the complete job of filling potholes on
Wait.
our streets?
Well, he went through and filled the whole, potholes.
Well, he missed Cherokee. There's a huge one at the end, at Cherokee and Pueblo.
He missed that one? Okay, he was supposed to drive
Because I
through. all-
noticed there were.
See, again, I'm using a contractor,
No,
so
I know.
this is where the problem is, and what would be nice is to have a municipality joint venture where I can easily call tomorrow and say, hey, guys, you missed this one, can you come out tomorrow and fix it? I don't have that
Yeah, I
luxury.
noticed there were 3 done, but
3, there was more than 3, he
Well,
spent
one of
half
us
a day.
reported Avenue A and
Yeah.
Barry Circle, and I'm thinking, okay, what happened? Because I reported it every month.
Okay, sorry. I mean, I gave him a whole list of, I told him basically to drive through all Borough and film, so he missed it.
Is he gonna come back?
Only if I call him, and I'll have to call him, and I can't promise you when that's gonna happen. And this is what the problem is with not having a public works department. It really is. It's a very frustrating situation for me. So anyway, we're working on that. Hopefully I can get that going. I just want to let you know about the street sweeping if you see it. Police reports and everything, engineers reports in there. I'm now starting to get reports from the fire department and the EMS, so you're gonna start seeing them in there, which is kind of neat. Tells you what the runs are and what they're running into. And that's all I got for you, Mr. President.
When do we need to consider the chief's request for officers? Is that part of next year's budget discussion?
Yeah, that'll come up this fall as we move forward. So just to give you a quick idea that I started working on is I want to look at moving forward. We got to raise taxes. We're going to have to up the millage. And when we do that, we have to then, once we approve a budget of what is comfortable for you folks, then Mike will take that before the state because we're going to be over the 30 mils. He'll take it and apply to the state for permission for us to do this. This is the route you have to take. So that probably won't be until the end of December or beginning of next
Yep,
year.
and usually they hold those hearings very, very quickly.
Okay.
Doesn't the police commission want an answer from us now? Because he has to hire people and train them.
Well, yeah, but you gotta work that out with your group. And from what I'm understanding is that they're still gonna push it off till September or October. It's gonna be something. So what I'm driving at is that if we have to raise taxes, I wanna make sure we're covering ourselves okay. You know, the 2 police officers is the one. We need another staff person in the office. That's gonna be another one. And then looking at this public works situation, that'll be the other one. So once we can get all these numbers together, to give you some kind of a cost factor of what that's gonna look like in the big picture, that will start happening next month. Because my goal is Dave and I are gonna start putting things together. We're gonna get everybody's fees that we need to get, put all this stuff together, and then have a proposal to you at the beginning of October. I would like to have another goals meeting to sit down and go over things and look at the finances and look at some goals of what maybe we can do for 2024. That would probably be in October. I would like to see you folks probably try to approve it for advertising in November, the December meeting. That's the goal for the budget aspect of things, if we can make that happen.
The police have to come up with
Their
budget, which we have to have before we can put it into ours.
Right.
We come up with a budget, and that's the one we end up taking to the court.
Right.
So
Because
they don't need a yay from us, we're waiting for them.
Well,
we have to tell
it's
them,
gonna, your commission's gonna wanna have an idea because they're gonna tell Caroline how to put that budget together, if it's gonna be 2 new officers or not. So, I can't see that happening before our next meeting. I wanted to let you folks know where we're at. I wanted the chief to be able to do his dog and pony show and where we write about who was going to start the dog and pony show. But, I
I
think,
just want everybody to know, this is the reason that the commission voted no to the school district. Because we didn't have an officer that we could hand to them for September. So this is, the school district made it sound like we didn't care about our students. It's not that. It's just that the commission, the police officers, there was nobody available that they could just hand over to the school district, and then they would have been another man down. So we could not do it.
The sheriff's office now.
Yeah, they went through the sheriff's office, which is a great
Sheriff's office
relief.
stepped in.
It worked out perfect for everybody, because we
just.
just were not in a position to hand an officer over to them. So I just want to make
Yeah.
that clear to everybody.
thank you, yes. So that's where we're at. Any questions?
The audit report will definitely be on.
I'll have
next
them,
month's
I'll have them, and Dave wanted to be here with them. So, Dave's on vacation this week,
You'll line them up for
Yes.
next month.
yes.
I read a little piece, John, about spraying, mosquitoes.
Oh, for the mosquitoes, yeah, the Board of Health, yeah.
Not spraying.
They're treating, if you read that thing, it talks about treating. They're not spraying. They physically go in and treat. So define treating, but it does say that they're not spraying if you read that one link in there. What they do is they go in and find the nest. They're looking for the nests that are breeding. All they have to do is break the nest. Once they break the nest, they're dead. Okay, and they have ideas where they're at. The only place that they're concerned about, believe it or not, is really Covered Bridge Park. And I said, well, technically not the borough. He says, well, don't tell me that, because then they would have to pay for the service, where if it's the municipality, they don't pay. So they just go around, they identify, and then they treat. So they're not going through with the fog machine, fogging the roads and doing any of that kind of stuff. Tom and I have gone over this, and I did confirm it with him again. And he says they're not going through and spraying.
Just need to spray from the other side of the creek, then at Covered Bridge Park.
What Doylestown does?
No, I'm just saying that they just, take it out of Covered Bridge, civic center, they just stand on the other side of the creek.
So I will tell you that I'm looking to get somebody to go through and spray the weeds. We have to get, our roads are really bad. I've never seen them so bad. We got growth unbelievably between the road and the curb lines. And that has to get sprayed to keep that from growing more.
There's a sign going towards a covered bridge that tells you the fine if you are over the size of the 9.5 going through. There's vines growing all over. No one can read that sign.
That's county.
Okay,
That's a county bridge.
okay, so the sign's a county sign. So somebody has to come and, who collects the $10,000, $1,000 fine? County?
I have no idea. They gotta catch you.
It's not our bridge.
It's not our bridge and they gotta catch you because I had one of the boards sitting in my office for about 3 or 4 months last year because somebody knocked it off and the person following that truck picked it up and brought it back to us.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, bless you. Second.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Good night, everyone.
Good.